Greetings, so now let's explore the ancient Egypt, a country located in the northeastern corner of Africa. The Nile River Valley and Delta were the heartland of Egypt, home to one of the principal civilizations of the ancient Middle East. So for over 3,000 years, Egypt thrived through a series of native dynasties with brief periods of foreign rule. The unified state was made possible by the Nile Valley's geography, which helped centralize power and unify the land under a single ruler. A stable food supply and social hierarchy allowed for urbanization, with cities developing along the Nile. This in turn enabled the growth of administration, commerce, and religious activities. The need for record keeping, tax collections, and monumental inscriptions led to the development of a written language, one of the key factors that made ancient Egypt a literate society.
Okay, now let's begin discussing the agriculture of ancient Egypt. This is also known as the gift of the Nile by Herodotus. The Nile River runs through Egypt, vital for farming and settlements. River Nile is the source of much of ancient Egypt's wealth, flooded every year during the month of July, or the Akhet. And we will discuss that later on. So nice. Who were the farmers in ancient Egypt? So the pharaoh or the king of the ancient Egypt ordered the wealthy peasants to work on his lands. During that time, most Egyptians were farmers who lived in towns together with the craft workers, traders, and their families. Next is, where did the Egyptians grow their crops? Now, the Egyptians grew their crops along the Nile River, where the rich black soil left by the floods made the land very fertile, for making it perfect for planting and perfect for farming. So next, now let's talk about the crops Egyptians farmers grow. The Egyptians cultivated many types of crops such as wheat, barley, vegetables, figs, melons, pomegranates, and vines. They also grew flax, which was used to make linen. Among all the crops, grain was the most important one. It is because it is used to make bread, porridge, and even beer. And it was also the first crop planted after the flooding season. Farmers also planted fruit trees and vines along the paths to give them shade and provide fruits.
Now we have the tools used in farming. First one is ox-drawn plow. This is powered by the use of oxen to pull a wooden hook-shaped plow. This allows the farmers to loosen the soil more easily and quickly than with manual tools alone. Sickles. Sickles, a curved blade, were primarily used for harvesting grain and initially made from wood with sharp flint blades and lather. Hoes and rakes. Hoes were used for breaking up soil clumps and tending crops, while rakes were used for leveling the ground after plowing. Shadoof. The device was used to lift water from the Nile River or canals into irrigation channels to water crops, allowing for efficient agriculture by using the lever system and counterweight to easily raise the full buckets of water.
Okay, next and last is the animals of Egyptians. Okay, in here, animals played an important role in the lives of Egyptian farmers. They were used for plowing the fields, trampling the seeds, and also for providing food and drinks. The Egyptians raised animals such as cattle, goats, pigs, ducks, cows, and geese.
Now, let's talk about the medicine in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians believed that the health and illness were deeply connected to the spiritual world. They thought that gods, demons, or evil spirits were behind many illnesses. According to their beliefs, the body had channels, much like the Nile River, that carried vital fluids. If a spirit blocked one of these channels, it could cause disease. And their solution? Restore balance by calling upon the gods or using herbal remedies and rituals. Ancient Egyptian medicine was remarkably advanced for its time, with a complex system of healthcare that combined empirical knowledge with spiritual practices. So, who were the doctors in ancient Egypt? Medical practitioners in Egypt were highly respected and worked in a variety of roles, from general physician to specialist. They understood the importance of treating both the body and the spirit, which is reflected in the types of healers that existed, which are the Suno, priest physicians, and medical specialists such as dentists and gynecologists. The Suno were the general physicians of ancient Egypt. They represented the more secular side of Egyptian medicine and were trained in diagnosis, treatment, and the use of natural remedies. Their work was grounded in both practical knowledge and traditional practices, demonstrating a blend of science and custom. In addition to general practitioners, ancient Egypt had priest physicians who approached healing from a religious and spiritual perspective. These healers believed that illness could result from supernatural causes, such as curses or the anger of the gods. Remarkably, ancient Egyptian medicine also included a range of specialists who focused on particular areas of the bodies. For example, Dentists were responsible for treating dental issues, which were common due to Egyptians' coarse, gritty diet. Other specialists focused on areas such as the eyes or the digestive system. One of the most notable examples of specialization comes from the Kakun Papyrus, an ancient medical text to around 1800 BC. So, there are three types of papyrus, which are the Iber's Papyrus, Kakun Papyrus, and Edwin Smith Papyrus. Ancient Egyptian used prayers and spiritual rituals to heal. They also had natural remedies using herbs and plants such as honey, garlic and onion, frankincense, willow bark, castor oil, malachite, beer, and bread. Ancient Egyptian also used animal-based medicines like honey, milk and eggs, ox organs, or animal liver, lizard blood, crocodile dung, and animal fat, and some of these were based on magical thinking.
And this is the medical invention made by the Egyptian. During the hot summers, the many Egyptians shave their heads to keep them clean and to prevent the pest away, such as lice. Next is toothpaste. Its ingredients include the powdered ox, hooves, ash, burnt eggshell, and pumice. Next is mummification. Mummification was the ancient Egyptian process of preserving the body after death, driven by their religious belief that the soul needed the intact physical form to recognize the responses in the afterlife. The process, which took 70 days, involved the removing of internal organs except the heart, dehydrating the body with natron salt, and then packing it with linen and wrapping it in linen bandage, often with amulets for protections. Next is cosmetics. Both men and women use their makeup for beauty, spiritual, and practical reasons, believing it had magical powers and was a sign of holiness. Next is surgical. Egyptian invented medical surgery. It explains 48 surgical instances of damage to the head, shoulders, necks, and chest and breast. It contains a list of tools employed while doing operations with direction in order to suture wounds with a thread and a needle. And now, let's move on to the math numbers, alphabets, and technologies. Hieroglyphs are a system of pictorial writing most famously used by ancient Egyptians, where symbols can represent object, ideas, or sound. The term meaning sacred carving refers to the formal script carved on the monuments and temples, while cursive form called hieratic was used for religious texts, administrative documents on papyrus. Egyptians used 10 decimal base system. Historians discovered to read hieroglyphs using the artifact called Rosetta Stone, which had one message written in 3 different languages: the Demotic, Hieroglyphic, and Greek. In ancient Egypt, the people who dedicated their lives to learning hieroglyphs were called scribes. It was possible for hieroglyphic message to be written in any directions. And this is the hieroglyphic numerals, where 1 is shown by a single stroke, 10 is shown by a drawing of a hobble for cattle, 100 is represented by a coil of fruit, 1000 a drawing of lotus plant, 10,000 is represented by a finger, 100,000 a toad or frog, and 1,000,000 figure of God with arms raised above his head. This is one of the 2 famous mathematical papyrus, the rhymed mathematical papyrus, ancient Egyptian scroll bearing mathematical tables and problems. This was used in calculating land measurements, construction, and resources distribution. This extensive document from ancient Egypt has been the source of much information about Egyptian mathematics. It dates from around 1650 BC, but the scribe Ames states that he copied it from an earlier document dating from 12th dynasty, around 1800 BC. This is where pi was first found.
So how about in ancient Egypt's economy and currency? In ancient Egypt, the economy was founded on a barter system, where individuals traded goods and services directly without using money. Goods like grain, livestock, textile, and pottery were commonly exchanged, while metals like copper, silver, and gold were used for larger transactions, and metal rings and ingots were sometimes used as a form of proto-currency. To standardize the trade, the Egyptians used the deben and shat. The deben was a unit of weight equivalent about 90 to 91 grams of copper or silver, while the shat was 1/10 of a deben. These units measured the value of goods and services, facilitating trade. In terms of their taxes, it were collected in kind, with the state taking goods like grain from farmers and workers receiving rations of it. The introduction of coinage marked a significant shift in Egypt's economic system. Although coins were introduced during the Persian occupation, they became more widespread during the Ptolemaic dynasty. The Ptolemaic kingdom introduced minted coins made of gold, silver, and copper, primarily for foreign trade and to showcase political power. These coins featured royal profiles such as Ptolemy I and Cleopatra VII, symbolizing their authority. Greek symbols like the eagle and the thunderbolt reflected the Ptolemaic dynasty's influence. Also, the tetradrachms, a large denomination of ancient silver coinage, were worth 4 drachms and weighed around 17.28 grams on the Attic standard. The introduction of coins facilitated trade and commerce in ancient Egypt, marking a shift towards a more standardized monetary system.
Now let's talk about the architecture and other monuments at Egypt. The Egyptians were masters of building pyramids and other temples. So, let's talk about it right now. First, we have the Egyptian housing. First, let's talk about the Old Kingdom. Housings. Egyptian people were reliant on the Nile River where it fertilized the land for easier farming and food resource. Houses were made of papyrus reeds mixed with mud, the most common thing or material near the Nile. But due to the annual flooding, some houses get destroyed due to weak materials. So, they improved upon it with mud bricks consisting of river desert clay with straw and water baked in the sun. But houses can be damaged, but religious buildings had to be permanent. So, they developed a new kind of housing for religious buildings. Egyptians had a heavy belief in the afterlife. So, to protect the bodies of their dead pharaohs, they made the mastaba, a flat top mound with an underground burial chambers where the bodies of the pharaohs were kept. Also, the pharaoh's belongings were kept on top. Now let's talk about the Egyptians' pyramids. So they have 3 notable pyramids and how the production of pyramids started. So we have the Step Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, and the Pyramid of Giza. So let's start with the Step Pyramid. So, the Step Pyramid. Pharaoh Djoser III, the pharaoh of the time, instructed Imhotep, vizier, the chief advisor, and architect of the pharaoh, tasked to him to make him a tomb and create the first pyramid, which is approximately 200 feet. The Step Pyramid was created by placing 6 mastabas on top of each other, and that's why it's called the Step Pyramid, due to how it looks. It also represented the stairway to Ra. Next, we got the Bent Pyramid. Pharaoh Sneferu, the first pharaoh ever to build the true pyramid, called the Bent Pyramid at Dashur, which caved in on top due to its steep slope. Because it had an angle of 55 degrees, that's why it caved in. Additionally, his son, Khnum Kofufi, or in translation, Khnum Protects Me, made improvements to his father's pyramid, which was the Great Pyramids of Giza. Made from limestones with a gold cap at top, which was the tallest man-made structure for 3,800 years, but the limestone was later removed to create the city of Cairo as we know today. Many pyramids were made, but during the Middle Kingdom, construction of pyramids continued, but they were not well constructed, like Pyramid of Amenemhat and Pyramid of Sosiris III, which look like they caved in due to its faulty design. Now, during the New Kingdom, Egyptians stopped building their pyramids. No one knows why they stopped it, but this meant Egyptians started to worship their gods instead of their kings. So, they built more and better temples, homes for their gods. The largest known temple of Egypt was at the precinct of Amun-Ra at Karnak, and there were also other notable temples like the Temple of Hatshepsut, the Ramesseum, the Luxor Temple, Abe Simbel, and Medit Habu, and many more.
So now let's tackle the ancient Egyptian calendar and timekeeping. The ancient Egyptians created a calendar that merged astronomy, mythology, agriculture to track the Nile's annual flooding. This calendar was guided by the Heliotic rising of Sirius, a star that signaled the flooding of the Nile River, crucial for agriculture. The ancient Egyptians associated Sirius with the goddess of death, symbolized fertility, rebirth, and agricultural prosperity. Their calendar divided the year into 3 seasons: Akhet, the flooding season; Peret, the growing season; and Shimu, the harvesting season. Each season had 30 days month plus 5. The ancient Egyptians used various timekeeping devices, including decans, shadow clocks, and water clocks. Decans were groups of stars or constellations used to measure time at night. There were 36 decans each, spanning 10 days, amounting to a 360-day year. Shadow clocks, a type of sundial, worked by using the sun's position to cast a shadow from a gnomon onto a marked surface. Water clocks, or clepsydrias, measured time by the steady control the flow of water. These devices were essential for telling time at night or on cloudy days when shadow clocks were ineffective. One example of a star associated with the decans is Sirius, which played a significant role in their calendar, marking the flooding of the Nile River. So they also followed multiple calendars, including the civil, religious, and lunisolar calendars. The lunar calendar was also known as the religious calendar. It was an older system based on phases of the moon. It consisted of 12 lunar months of 29 or 30 days and was used for religious purposes. The civil calendars, introduced around 2900 BCE, was used for governmental, administrative, and agricultural purposes. It had a 365-day year consisting of 12 months, each with 30 days plus 5 extra days. However, the lack of leap year caused the civil calendar to gradually drift out of alignment with the true solar year. The lunisolar calendar, introduced in the 4th century BCE, attempted to reconcile the lunar cycle with the civil year. It worked on a 25-year cycle matching 309 solar months to 25 civil years. This system helped organize farming, labor, and festivals like Opet, which reflect Egypt's harmony with nature and the divine.